How do you think we've made it this long in our relationship when we're both fairly sensitive? And even though we both know that we love each other so much and we never intentionally try to say the thing that's going to be taken the wrong way, it happens because we're so sensitive, right?
Right. We're sensies.
Welcome back to In Residence. I'm Keith.
And I'm Laura.
Hey, Laura.
Hey, Keith.
How are you doing?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good.
Good.
So we're recording a lot of episodes kind of back to back. I don't know if there's anything new or up with us.
There's always something up.
Okay.
We got our patio furniture back from your parents.
Deck.
Yeah, our deck furniture.
Whatever. Okay.
I guess it's deck furniture. We've spent time on our deck.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah, it's warm enough to be out there, but then we have to come back in and grab a sweatshirt.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's kind of windy, but at least there's no bugs.
Right.
Pretty soon it'll be too hot and buggy.
True. I played tennis with child 1 and my parents and child 2. Yeah, we were all trying to play against him.
I wanted to play, but I told him, I said, hit one ball at me so I can hit it back. And then I came home and I mowed the lawn.
Fun time.
Sacrifice.
Adulting.
Yeah.
Looked nice, by the way.
Yeah. The lawnmower did most of the work.
That's good.
Yeah. No, I was pretty tired after, actually. Yeah.
Keith, you had something you wanted to talk about today. And I'm excited to get into it. So do you want to set it up?
I think I had something I wanted to talk about. And a couple things have come up also in addition.
Okay.
So we're just going to kind of see where it goes. It's just been on my mind.
Sounds good to me.
A couple different things. So try to get all my notes assembled here. So if you like to think of topics for us to talk about, and so if I had to say a phrase for what I've been thinking about, it's that I want to get out of fix it mode and start being intentional.
Okay.
Which is my theme for the year, right? Or my word for the year was intention.
Right.
And so I'm need to reaffirm that, right? So that is a distillation of, I was journaling or writing in response to something or something I was hearing, getting out of the fix it mode. I think that actually came from me listening back and editing our podcast. And when I was talking about fixing stuff around the house, that's usually what gets me into action. It feels really similar to me waiting for something to happen for me to react to it. Whereas I want to be the agent. I want to be the one choosing action instead of reacting.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where that came from. And then out of that, I feel like I've been kind of stalled and stuck. Stuff we talk about a lot, right? So this is all just kind of like a preface to maybe get us to have a conversation, right? Out of that came, I need to know what I want. This is also you hey, you need to write a plan. Mm-hmm. And so I'm realizing, okay, I need to know what I want. I need to be able to say what it is out loud, right?
Yeah.
Not just think it, even write it down, right?
Yeah.
And then be able to say what I think I need to do to get that thing. And am I willing to do that? And then out of that also came, do I know what I have to offer? What do I have to offer? It's the same. It was right next to it. And then can I define what I do? Right? Mm-hmm. That was all kind of jumbled together. So all this was going through my head, and that came to oh, I'm always stuck in fix it mode. I'm waiting for something to happen so that I can react to it. So that's one of the main things that I was thinking about bringing to you. The other thing that comes out of that is the stimulus and the reaction and how different people react differently to stimulus. I think we even said that recently.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it in another place, and I was like, oh, I was just thinking that. I want to be the one to create stimulus,
right?
Not constantly waiting for it. So
You said quite a bit.
No, I know.
That's why I'm.
But it might not be anything. It's just something that's been on my mind, which is not much different than it's been on my mind for years, right? Hey, don't wait around. I need to choose.
Yeah. But it makes me think about the idea. It's that idea that if you see people coming down the river that have been thrown in the river and you spend all your time just fixing each situation, right? Going and getting the person, bringing them, throwing the life preserver, whatever, going and getting them. Where it's like you're constantly reacting and constantly fixing the situation, where what you need to be doing is going up and figure out who on earth is throwing these people in the river.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's what it's reminding me of, or what it's coming up.
It's kind of like build a system or fix a system, right? Not fix. It's like, yeah.
It's figuring out what's at the root.
Yeah.
Of what you want to do.
Yeah. And it's a bit of a conundrum, but it's simply, I think it's just actually setting aside the time to maybe do some of that deep focus work and actually just address those kind of questions to myself. So, I mean, it's a little unfulfilling because I don't really have an answer quite yet, aside from I'm writing to see if anything stands out to me that's worth sharing. I think I'm kind of missing the point. I think I'm being maybe too precious and thinking it has to be right. Whereas I simply need to, there's been a little bit of a push in Purple Space to, amongst a group of people to write daily and ship it.
Yeah.
And I feel like I may be hesitating and being a little too resistant to that when it might actually be the next step to get me to the next step.
So when you say writing daily,
like a blog post,
like in the space, or like to set up your own blog?
Well, I have my own blog. It's just I don't publicize it very much, and I don't do it daily. We do it weekly with the episodes. So if I think about it, I'll throw up a blog post. I mean,
I didn't know you were doing that.
I haven't in a while.
Okay.
It's usually just show notes and a link to the new episode.
Right.
So it's weekly. But there's maybe a handful to a dozen little blog posts. Like one day you texted me and I responded, and it was like one of those things where you needed like a little nudge in the,
pick me up.
Yeah. And you responded to me saying like, well, that sounds like a blog post. And I was like,
yeah,
copy and paste. And I published it to the Make, Create, Build website.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I don't tell you stuff like that. So yeah.
And you're a really good writer.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
No, I like reading your writing because I will say I write, but then I need someone to help me edit and think through to make it concise. You write with intention from the get-go. And it's fun to see how you structure things. And maybe you do lots of reworks and edits, but just naturally, I feel like you do a good job. I really enjoy reading your writing.
I'll take that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So that actually speaks to another thing I've been thinking of, or when I said, can I define what I do?
Mm-hmm.
I tend to say like I'm do laundry and I do dishes, and mm-hmm. I edit a podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
I finally heard the words. I don't know if I brought this up to you. Developmental editor.
No. That
sounds like what I do with your writing.
Mm-hmm.
I Googled it, and there's several different types of editing. Copy editors tend to do the mechanical stuff, the grammar and the commas, and developmental is looking at the big picture. Mm-hmm. And are you saying what you're trying to say? And some of the stuff that I help you with, right? And I was like, oh, I actually do that, or I've done that. And so it was a moment where I had the words to describe something, a skill of mine.
Right.
Where I didn't know because I'm like, I don't know where the right commas go, and I don't always know the right grammar, but I do know how to write for continuity. And is the idea coming across? I can also look at like, maybe let's not use the same word 15 times. because that's going to get really repetitive and boring. So there's a little mix of things in there. So that was something that happened because it was probably the other morning when I was still waking up and thinking of like, what can I write about? And I'm like, what do I even do? So that was like one of those things that kind of fed into that. It's like, oh, I can actually define something that I do besides lift heavy things. Like that's kind of my little joke is like, that's my superpower is I can lift heavy things, but I can't even lift the heaviest of things.
Lift heavier things than I do.
You're right. It's not saying much. Boom.
I can lift some heavy things.
Roasted. I'm kidding. Today I saw a short video on Instagram because I was checking to see how the last post went or if anybody liked it or responded. Because sometimes people will message me and I'm not good at social media that way. And so I'm like, well, I better, if I'm going to put something out thinking that I'm going to connect with somebody, I better be available if they're trying to connect with me, right? And then, of course, I start scrolling on the site. So I saw this video and a gal was talking about relationships. Her framing was that relationships are a mirror to show you what you need. And that's why it's important to find a partner who can see your blind sides, but also call you out for them, but also be like, and I'm here for you. So kind of holding you accountable, but like helping you be accountable and responsible. So like when I say something dumb or wrong, you'll be like, hey, that's not cool. Like that doesn't make me feel good. Right.
Right.
But you're willing to be there for those mistakes and make it safe for me to kind of have those oopsies. And that's kind of like the whole point. And I was like, oh, I'm like, that feels like us. Like,
yeah,
like it's okay for us to make mistakes and we're there to help each other be accountable to ourselves, not so much, not even as much as to each other, right? Like that's there. And there's a responsibility knowing like where maybe I need to do a little more work, right? Brings me to the next thing that came up because I was listening to one of our past episodes. I was editing it. You brought up the slow cooker.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, don't put pasta in it, right?
Yeah.
It's horrible. You're like, oh yeah, that was pretty bad. And that brings up that thing. I think I've talked to you about this before, and people that read Seth Godin's stuff have probably heard it, which is I wasn't criticizing you. I was criticizing like the product, right? Criticize the work, not the worker is the line that he brings up. And that got me thinking that it's not always easy to not take that personally when it's a work that you've done, right? You're like, I was trying to make food for us and you don't like it and you're voicing that, right? Like back, like when it actually happened, I'm pretty sure you're probably like, oh, ouch, like I tried, right? And I'm like, this is horrible. Like it's like glue, right? So that can come off like feeling like personal, like a personal attack, right? But I think we've grown through those things and realized like, oh, that wasn't directed at me. That was directed at the work. Or like if we're writing and editing together, right? How does that feel? Like thinking about that, because like you have to do that for your profession, whereas all of my examples are with you, basically. It's been a while since I've had to critique actual work in the workplace.
Yeah.
Like I don't take feedback easy sometimes.
You don't?
Like I take things personally, even though I'm sitting here trying to say like, hey, it's not about me. It's about how do you find that? How's that going for you with me? I think is the question. What do you
mean how's it going to give you feedback?
Yeah, or getting it from me.
Good question. I feel like we're better at giving feedback to each other. And maybe this isn't right, but I feel like we're more patient in giving feedback to each other.
Than like 15 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we know the feedback that we want to give right away. It's not a good time.
Yeah.
Say we go back to the slow cooker with the pasta and I was in tears because it wasn't. No, but say I was.
Yeah, I don't think you were, but I wasn't. I'm like, oh no.
But say I was in tears because I felt terrible because I spent all day No, I didn't, because it was a slow cooker. It spent all day cooking the stuff. And then you came in and told me it was basically like glue.
Yeah.
But I was like, if I was crying, I think you would know, okay, it may taste like glue. It doesn't mean I have to eat it, but I also don't need to tell her that what she already feels bad about, it really is that bad, if not worse. Do you know what I'm saying? I think
I have a little more tact, maybe a little more tactful,
or just, I mean, it's emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Right. Trying to understand where people are at and how to work with them based on where they are.
Yeah. Who are the people and what's the situation? So the other thing that came up that I think follows that is treating different people differently is another Sethism.
Mm-hmm.
And at first it's like, I love it because it bumps up against that, not equity, equality, right? Like that's the golden rule, right? Treat everybody like you want to be treated, and then treat everybody how they want to be treated.
Mm-hmm.
And then this treating different people differently, I think is another extension of that, which when you think about it for a few seconds, it's like, oh, that's great because everybody's different. And therefore, why would, like, you hear when people talk about like employees and having that high emotional intelligence, right? It's like some people are going to care about making money. Some people are going to care about having time off. Some people are going to, care about this, that, and the other thing. I think it's relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so having the awareness of who am I talking to? What do they care about? How can I say what needs to be said without hurting somebody's feelings? Because it's usually never necessary.
Right. Yeah. I think the one thing when you're talking about treating different people different, like I have this reaction because I agree with that. And I also could see that it has the possibility of feeling a little wrong.
Yeah.
Because there's a part of me that thinks to how often we've treated different people in society differently in a bad way.
Right.
Based on an identity they held.
That's what I meant. Why it like at first it's like it feels a little off, but then it's like, wait, we're not coming at it from that side.
So
we're not trying to treat people like mutants, like X-Men that have lasers coming out of their eyes and they're calling them freaks. It's more of like, oh, you're different, and I'm going to honor that.
Right. So it's truly seeing people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard work.
It is hard work, and I think we also have to maybe realize or know that you have to really be open to listening and asking questions when you're in that mode, because if you're making assumptions about how you think somebody needs to be treated.
Yeah, actually having a dialogue. And instead of guessing, having a conversation.
Right. Because that's the other trap I could see, is that if you're trying to do good, but you're making assumptions in doing that, it doesn't mean that you don't have good intent, but it does mean you're having an impact you don't intend to have if it falls short or misses. Maybe not even falling short. I mean, it could backfire too.
So I'm wondering if I kind of tricked you into talking about this because I brought up work.
Mm-hmm.
And what I really like is that this applies to relationships like ours.
Yeah.
It's like I don't want to treat our partnership like a business partnership, but isn't it funny that when you create a culture at work that takes care of people's needs, things tend to go better? Just like at home, when you're taking care of each other and addressing people's needs and having conversations, listening for what they're telling you instead of guessing.
Yeah.
That things tend to go better.
Yeah. I think so many of the things that we talk about apply not just in work and not just in relationships, but I think you're right. I mean, it applies kind of across the board. And it's interesting because the conversations we have, it's always going kind of back and forth between work, not work, personal, relationship, family,
Well, and I heard this somewhere. I think it was in a video. One of the indicators of whether or not someone is going to like stick around at a job is whether or not they maybe have like a work friend and actually have a connection, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what all the different types of relationships, they're connections. And we're social beings, right? Obviously we're seeing the connection, but I think that's really important. I mean, it was important for me when I was in the workplace to actually enjoy being around the people I had to spend the majority of my day around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've talked a lot about like, that's where like you lead from creating a culture where people are feeling like they're part of something and have a say in the group and where you're going together. Right.
Right. So one thing I want to talk a little bit about more is the idea of having a friend at work, because this is something that I've heard various reactions from people on, where some people think that absolutely, that makes a lot of sense. There's books about it. Vital Friends is a book that's out there that's really about how important having that work friend is to satisfaction, retention, productivity, and other comments when I've heard from people that have said, I don't want to be friends with people I work with. That's not why I'm here.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a really interesting dichotomy. I don't know if you've thought about that in previous work situations.
I don't know if I thought about it as much as I experienced the joy of being around people I liked being around at work, and the sheer annoyance of being around people I didn't want to be around at work. Obviously, you're much happier when you're around people that are making you have a better day.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could, I think it's like I would rather make less money and be around people I enjoyed being around. If it came to it, like, do you want to make more money and work with these people you can barely tolerate? Or do you want to make less money and have a great time with these people? Like, I would pick less money.
Yeah.
Because it's like life's too short kind of thing.
Right.
It's like it's like that's about the best way I can think to sum that up. Yeah. I've had some long days when I'm like, oh, this person isn't going to last long, because you can see like they're not people like us. They are in a different headspace. They don't understand what it's like to be part of this environment, this team, like how it just the flow, right? You can feel it. I think it's like palpable. You can feel it in the air. The work buddy you get along with, you're like, so what do you think? And they were like, well, they're doing okay. Like, I'm like, you're optimistic. I'm like, I'm calling it right now. They may, like, for a while there, we're like, okay, they're not going to last a week, and they'd be gone because they would choose to not be there, because we would be holding them accountable and be like, no, that's not how we do it.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, I'm done. We weren't mean. It's just some people just were not on the same page.
So when you're thinking about the work friend relationships, what sort of things or words would you use to describe it? Like that friendship. So things that I'm thinking about at various places I've worked. I've had like a good friend who was at work. I felt like I had a confidant, someone that I could tell and talk through almost anything with, good or bad.
Yeah, I mean, someone you can talk to, whether it's like a happy thing or a mistake, someone you can ask a question of. This is what I'm doing right here. What do you think? Get a little feedback, and also just kind of like the water cooler type stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How was your weekend? Great. Oh, what did you do? That's good.
I think there's also someone to help. Say you're doing a big project or setting up for an event that is willing to come and help you do that, even though it's the last thing anybody wants to really do. And you have fun doing it.
Yeah. I mean, that makes me think of knowing I can depend on the person whether it's to help me or they're doing their job, they're doing their role, which makes it easier for me to do mine. It's dependable.
Right.
Working to a standard.
Yeah.
In agreement with like that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Like I've really enjoyed having people at different institutions that I worked with that I would consider kind of a work buddy. And I think one of the biggest things for me, normally when something was hard or frustrating, you had somebody to be like, okay, let's get off campus. We're going to go get, pizza somewhere. We're going to go to the pizza ranch and we're going to go hit the pizza buffet and
Yeah. I know.
Positions that I've been in more recently, it's harder to cultivate that when you're at a certain
you're the boss
positional level because you're the boss and people don't want.
You've told me I'm not going to go out because they don't need me to be around while they're trying to have fun.
Exactly. I don't want to damp it. I don't want to be.
They don't need their supervisor around.
There she is. Yeah. So I want people to be able to be free to express themselves and have honest conversations without feeling like they have to edit in front of me. I will say, though, too, it's hard because one thing that I really enjoyed is that you had someone to talk to when things were hard that were there. And the further up an organizational chart you get, the fewer people that you have to be able to do that with.
Well, that's why it's important. Like you brought up, having a mentor and creating what would people call like a mastermind, right? Just having a circle for that.
And I will say, I feel like I have that, but it's external to the places I've been. Probably the last 3 places I've been, right?
It takes a little planning. It's not as accessible as they're down the hall or on the next floor, right?
It's I'm trying to think how to say this without like talking about the organization. There's one place that I was at, and every once in a while we would put something on our calendars with a fake title.
Code name Operation.
Yeah, it was like
Operation ...
It might have even been like Operation. I don't even know what it was, but it was that like that. Okay, we need to get off and talk shop. Not here.
Yeah.
But again, it was a long time ago. But I remember some of the relationships you form with people. Some of the strong ones come when you're going through what
trauma bonding.
Well, I will say some of the more difficult.
That's why I started laughing.
Work situations I've been in, that has been where I've forged more close friendships, right? Or relationships, or because you go through it together.
Yeah.
That's why it's one of those, although the experience was really hard and difficult, there was a silver lining, and some of it are the colleagues and the friends that I still have to this day because we were in it together, right? We survived it together.
Yep.
What?
We just started talking about work again. That's funny.
I know.
And I'm like, isn't it funny that I tricked you into talking about stuff that applies to relationships? And you're like, let's talk about work.
Oh, I thought you were trying to be like, we're going to talk about, I'm going to start with relationships to trick you into talking about your work.
No.
Oh, it was the opposite?
It's the opposite.
Oh.
Nobody wants to hear about your work.
That's true.
That's true. Hear all the deets on our squabbles and our disagreements. Squabbles? And how we get through it stronger, better, faster.
Do we? No, just kidding.
Ouch.
That was a joke.
Huh.
So can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I shifted us talking to work friends, but I know
it's an important relationship to have in your life.
It is.
For us. Like
right?
you said, not everybody.
Not everybody.
And that's kind of what I was talking about too, is like, not everybody needs that.
I've heard just so many different things about comparing work to like being friends or comparing work to being a family. It's like, no, I got a family.
Yeah.
And so
well,
I
it can be weaponized, right?
Yeah.
To extract more value out of you than they're paying for.
Right. Well, and I think it's just really important to be mindful about the words we use and know that some people it may resonate with a lot and other people might be really offended or taken advantage of or completely misunderstood. So,
well, same as like we had that whole conversation about like, is our marriage like a startup or a merger,
Well, what I wanted to shift to though is you and we've talked just about how we might be partners, but we're also really good friends. I always say, I'm like, you're my best friend.
Yeah. And then I'm like, oh, wait, that's when I'm supposed to say it back. I'm like, yep, you're my best friend too.
Oh, okay. So this might be a weird question. Have you always felt like I was your best friend? Like when we were first starting dating and stuff?
Probably not. I mean, I didn't know you that well.
Yeah, we didn't know each other very well.
We're getting to know each other. I mean, I really enjoyed your company.
Yeah.
But like, honestly, would I have called you my best friend after meeting you for a week? No.
No. Or even, I mean, you were definitely in my top 10.
Oh, wow. Really?
Probably. I don't know. I didn't keep a list.
I'll take it.
But I think the reason I'm thinking about that is because like we were talking about how like work friends, right? You kind of look forward to like going and doing things and supporting each other, and kind of forging a relationship too through things that are hard.
Mm-hmm.
And the things that are hard that I'm thinking about from a work aren't the same. They couldn't be mapped to like things you and I have experienced together. But I wonder if some of how we've come to be really good friends too in our relationship is because we've been through some stuff.
Oh, for sure. I mean, we've definitely grown closer together over the last 17 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, it's kind of hard for me to think back before that and to try to tap into what was it like in the first year or two. We spent quite a bit of time apart.
Yeah,
I mean, you were a couple 100 miles south, doing your graduate work, and I was finishing up college.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. Even when we moved in together, you were working overnights.
Yeah.
I was working days.
Like a normal person.
Your ships passing in the night.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah. I mean, we had similar interests. We enjoyed each other's company. I mean, that's how things start.
Right. Yeah.
But like, also, you would come my way a little bit and try and like go to Metallica concerts, and I would go your way and we'd go to musicals and things like that. And then, yeah, what a wild ride, actually. Yeah.
Because you think about where we started as really two individual people with likes and dislikes, where we had to kind of come one way or another, and eventually getting a house right during the housing bubble.
Yeah.
Right in the late aughts.
Yep.
And then I
quit my job and I went back to school.
Yeah.
We found out we were having kids. And
2 kiddos.
Yeah. It goes fast.
It does go
it's
fast.
It's a blur.
But we kind of shifted, like what I'm thinking is we shifted from being just single people, kind of completely separate, just cohabitating, to almost like a team trying to work through those things together.
Like with kids, you mean?
With kids in particular, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely a game changer. Yeah, there was a lot of things shifting there. And then it definitely, I think that turned into maybe like you were saying about working through the hard things. Like we were experiencing parenthood together, obviously at the same time. It was new to us. And every time we figured something out, they were growing and changing and getting faster and smarter. And then we had to adapt. And so it was just like you were talking about, like with work friends, and they're there to, you could depend on them to help you through the hard stuff. Like that's what we were doing for each other. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it hasn't, I mean, that was like 7 or 9 years of that. It feels like it felt like maybe when child one was like 7 and 5, that was still a handful. And then so maybe like
it was
7 and 9, it was starting to see a little light at the end of the tunnel of like, oh, okay, they're mostly okay with, you don't have to be so vigilant all the time. And they're, they still obviously need us all the time at that age. And now it's like, we have to bug them, like,
yeah, that's true.
Like, pay attention to us, kids. And then we gotta realize, like, okay, give them more space. Like, they're
teenagers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was to answer kind of where that started with, you said like were you my best friend right away? I don't know quite how soon it happened, but very soon I realized I would rather spend my time with you than a lot of other people. And it hasn't changed,
Honey, I appreciate that. I like spending time with you too.
Yeah. That being said, we're up for like double dates because we need to like get out and do some stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. And I will say,
we do get along with people.
We do.
We're pretty fun.
I will say, even though it seems like all we do is sit around and hang out with each other and talk about how, so much, we're both pretty independent as well. And I think that actually is better. So, okay. So I have to share this. When we first started dating, I remember going to a house party at one of my friends' places.
Mm.
And I brought you with. And I remember thinking, or I might have told my friend this, but I thought, okay, so this is a good test for us. I want to know, is he around enough that I know he's here, but not around so much that I can't mingle and hang out with other people and do my thing? And you passed with flying colors because you were there and I was there, but we were separate and we're hanging out with different people, but we're together. It was really, really nice. And that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, I think you told me that one time.
Did I?
Like a long while ago. I was like, oh, okay. Oh, that's right. I'm probably being tested all the time.
No. It was...
No, I'm joking. No, it felt good. It felt good that the way that I naturally act was congruent with you. Is that the right word?
Yeah, it's the way that I naturally act too.
Yeah.
Because if all we did was sit and hang out with one another, we could have done that at home.
True. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Anyway, I will say I think that's how we also conduct ourselves in our home and in our family is we're here, we're together, we do things together, we hang out some, but we also have our own things that we do. I think even this past weekend, I woke up, we hung out a little bit with some coffee, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go and do some yard work outside. You're like, okay, I'm going to go work downstairs. An
extension of that is when you puzzle and you're doing your thing and I'm doing my own thing. It doesn't always have to be in the same space, but we can do our own thing in the same room and not constantly have to check in with each other or, oh, you want to puzzle? Okay, well, I don't really feel like sitting there, but I'm going to sit just a little further away so I'm more comfortable, and I'm going to read or doodle or what was that called? It's not like alone together, is it? But I think you do that better than me, that alone time with me by you. Like you were reading your book last night.
I was.
While I was watching hockey.
That was nice.
Yeah.
I should have done that earlier in the hockey games.
I see the thing. I saw a little meme of how can I trust somebody who falls asleep, and when I catch them falling asleep, they wake up and don't admit that they were sleeping. It's like, how am I supposed to trust that person?
It's fair.
It's like you were doing that towards the third period. I think you were towards the end of your chapter and you were starting to fall asleep.
Oh man,
really
I just need a page and a half.
After you're like, I finished, I'm done with that chapter. I'm like, what's the last word you read? Couch. And then you open you're like, nope.
It's in the last sentence at least.
Yeah. How do you think we've made it this long in our relationship when we're both fairly sensitive. And even though we both know that we love each other so much and we never intentionally try to say the thing that's going to be taken the wrong way, it happens because we're so sensitive, like, right? Like,
right. We're sensies.
It's so much better than it was maybe 12, 15 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's not a coincidence that raising kids maybe helped us grow as well.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of puts things in perspective.
Well, I think with that in particular, I think we started realizing that I remember both of us have said to each other, we're on the same team.
Yeah.
When we were trying to approach something and maybe in different ways. And there's no reason we had to really be contrary to each other. It's just we had to figure it out together. And I remember we would say that.
Get out of our own heads, right? Like sometimes I'll be in my head thinking I have the solution and all I need to do is communicate it.
Yeah.
And be open to some feedback. Or it's like, I mean, the thing that pops up, it's like if I'm going to hover over you and second guess how you're scrubbing a pot, you'll just be like, do you want to come do it? And I'll be like, message received. All right. See you later. Like, yeah, true. Fair enough. I'll just do it when you're gone. No, I'll come back and redo it. No, that's if I'm feeling snarky. It's about communication, I think.
Yeah. Do you think feedback, I don't think I've ever done this, but do you think feedback goes better for you if I ask permission to give it to you first?
Have you ever asked for permission to give me feedback?
I don't know if I have. It was on a movie, Wine Country.
Did we watch that together?
We did.
Okay. Was that
Maya Rudolph and Amy Poehler?
Okay, yeah.
Tina Fey.
Yeah.
And
so that's something that's new to me.
Can I give you some feedback?
I've noticed that's how people interact, actually. And it tends to go better. May I offer you some feedback? And then somebody can say, that's not what I'm looking for right now. Like, no, thank you. Maybe we should try that. See what happens.
I don't think we've done that.
I mean, when I try to fix all the problems that you're telling me about, and I've learned like, oh, wait, do you want me to offer you solutions right now? I've gotten better at that, right?
Yeah.
That feels adjacent.
Especially if I say, I'm not seeking for you to fix it. And you're like, okay, I'm trying to fix it.
And well, so like I think you used to have to do that. You would have to stop me and be like, I'm not looking for you to fix this right now. Now I'm catching myself do it. And sometimes I'd catch myself before I even start. And I know I've asked.
That's good.
I know I've asked you recently, like within the last however many months. Yeah. I'm feeling like giving you feedback or advice. Would that be helpful right now? Yeah. And you're like, not right now. I'm like, okay. Like, I know that's happened a couple times, but I still go into the fix it mode.
Yes.
I do.
Yes. You want to fix it. You want to make it better.
Yeah.
It's coming from a good place.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't want a solution.
Yeah.
I just want to vent. Sometimes
it's like, I want a solution, but after I get all this out, and then I'll come up with my own solution, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah. That's something for me to, like, the stakes don't need to be so high with every problem, maybe.
Right. I like that concept, because sometimes we put so much into every little single thing that we can get just a little bent out of shape about something that isn't or doesn't need to be as big of a deal as we make it.
Yeah, I think I'm getting better at noticing when I'm getting cranky. Mm-hmm. It's not always easy to get out of the state, but seeing it, the awareness of it, makes me get out of it faster than if I was just brooding. But that's something else for me to work through that I want to get better at, is instead of spiraling into the negative emotion, probably, how to interrupt that spinning or that cycle. It's getting easier, and I'm sure I have I'm sure there's like some videos I saved like with tools that help with that, besides things that we've mentioned. But anyway.
Yeah. No. Anything else that you've been thinking about?
I feel like there's something else that needs to be said, but it's past your bedtime.
It's past my bedtime.
Should we wrap it up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up. What have you been watching or listening to this week?
I've been watching a lot of hockey because it's the playoffs. But if that's not your thing, I recommend you finding something that gets your heart rate up to 100 just from watching it. Find that and do it because it's kind of fun getting elevated that way with just watching. I was like, I think my heart rate's up, but I checked my watch and it was at 100. And I was just watching the last couple minutes of a hockey game. It was a lot of fun. You can tell I kind of wish I was out on the ice.
Yeah.
Maybe next winter. Anyway, what do you got?
I started reading a book, The Lager Queen of Minnesota by J. Ryan Straddle. I am really enjoying it. Same author that wrote Kitchens of the Great Midwest that I read just a little bit ago. I love it. So far, so good. I'm enjoying that.
Cool. All right. Well, grab a good book or find something that gets your heart rate going a little bit. We get out of here.
Let's do it.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
The different types of stimulus or the different types of things that get me going and wanting to do the work, it's different for me than other people. So I just got to do what does it for me. And if that means I start work at 11:30 just because that's like when my brain's on, that is it. Or maybe I need to get up at 5:30 and see what happens. That's kind of boring stuff, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I talk too much. I'm sorry.
So I'm trying to think.
So we kind of ended up talking about relationships.
Yeah.
All right.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Relationships are about finding a partner that can have your back, but also call you out for like your blind sides and like things that you maybe need to like work on.
Mm-hmm.
But they're there to support you, even though you're making mistakes, making it safe for you to make mistakes together so that things can be better.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't say this, but I think maybe what I was thinking, like when you tell me, hey, what you just said, that makes me feel like crap.
Mm-hmm.
I want that to happen, even though I don't feel good when I make you feel like crap, but us holding each other accountable, right?
We do give each other feedback, but we're still trying to figure out how to give each other feedback in a way that it's received the way we intend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I'm not sure. I mean, we've gotten better.
Yeah.
But I still think
we have tender hearts.
We do have to.
That's going to start the podcast. Right there.
Oh.
Keep going.